What would drive a grieving widow to invite a proud native man and his 5 daughters into her struggling Kansas farm in 1865? What began as a desperate bargain quickly turned into something no one in town could have expected. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. Margaret Whitfield stood on her front porch, the Kansas sun beating down on her weathered face. The vast emptiness of her farm stretched before her, as barren as her life had become since Thomas died in the war. 3 years a widow, at 35 she felt ancient, with only memories and debts for company. "Mrs. Whitfield?" The voice startled her. She turned to see Sheriff Mills approaching on horseback. "Sheriff, what brings you out this way?" Margaret brushed dust from her simple dress. "Got word from town. The bank's giving notice on your property. 3 months behind, they say." Margaret's throat tightened. "I'll find a way." "No offense, ma'am, but you've been saying that since spring thaw. Can't run this place alone. I've hired help before, and they've all left. No man wants to work for promises instead of pay." Mills shifted uncomfortably. "There's a situation in town. Government's relocating some Indians. Cherokee family. Man named Swift River and his 5 daughters. His wife passed last winter. What's that to do with me? The father's strong as an ox. Worked with the Union Army as a scout. Speaks English proper. Daughters range from 7 to 16. The eldest can work like a grown woman." Margaret frowned. "You suggesting I hire Indians?" "I'm suggesting you need help, and they need somewhere to go. Government's paying settlement money for displaced tribes. He'd come with enough to cover your bank debt if you'd provide housing and employment." "People would talk." Mills shrugged. "People always talk. Question is whether you'd rather keep your farm with Indian help or lose it with your pride intact." That evening, Margaret couldn't sleep. The thought of strangers in her home, Indian strangers, troubled her. But Thomas had left her with a mortgage and dreams unfulfilled. They'd planned children, a prosperous farm, a legacy. Now she faced losing everything. The next morning found her in town, waiting outside the relocation office. When Swift River emerged with his daughters, Margaret was struck by his dignified bearing. Tall and broad-shouldered, with strong features and eyes that reflected both wariness and intelligence. The girls clustered behind him, dressed in simple clothes, a mixture of traditional and settler styles. "Mr. Swift River?" she ventured. He studied her carefully. "I am he. I'm Margaret Whitfield. Sheriff Mills mentioned you're seeking employment and housing. We need a place, yes. Government says we cannot stay on our land anymore." Margaret noticed the eldest daughter watching her intently. "I have a farm. It's too much for me alone. Sheriff thought perhaps we might help each other. What work needs doing?" "Everything. Fields need tending, fences mending, barn needs repair. I've livestock to care for, crops to plant." Swift River nodded slowly. "My daughters and I, we know farming. Different land, but same work. I can offer housing in the barn until we can build proper quarters, meals provided. Fair wages once the farm turns profit again. And my settlement money?" Margaret hesitated. "I need it for the bank, to save the farm. But I'd consider it an investment. You'd have claim to a portion of the harvest." The eldest daughter whispered something to her father in Cherokee. He responded quietly before addressing Margaret again. "Lily says we should consider. Winter approaches. Better shelter than government provides." He extended his hand. "We will work. We will see if trust can grow between us." As they loaded their few possessions onto Margaret's wagon, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. But watching Swift River lift his youngest daughter, speaking softly to calm her fears, Margaret felt something she hadn't in years: hope. The ride back was mostly silent. Occasionally, Swift River would point out something to his daughters, teaching them English words. The second eldest, around 14, seemed especially eager to learn. "That one studies hard," Margaret commented. "Sarah," Swift River replied. "Named by missionary school. Wants to be teacher someday." "And the others?" "Eldest is Lily, then Sarah, then Mary, Rose, and little Emma, Christian names. Swift River's expression hardened slightly. School names. They have Cherokee names too. Private names. Margaret nodded, understanding boundaries had been drawn. As they approached her farm, she felt suddenly self-conscious about its rundown state. The barn roof sagged. Fences leaned drunkenly. Fields lay fallow where they should be planted. "It was better once," she said quietly. "Will be again." Swift River surveyed the land with a critical eye. Good soil. Water nearby. Just needs hands to work it. He looked at her directly. "We will make it live again, Mrs. Whitfield." That night, as Margaret prepared a simple meal to take to the barn, she realized the enormity of what she'd done. Strangers now lived on her land, not just strangers, but Indians. Yet watching through the barn door as Swift River distributed food among his daughters, ensuring the youngest ate first, she recognized something universal. A father caring for his children. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. The early November frost crunched beneath Margaret's boots as she crossed the yard, carrying breakfast to the barn. 2 weeks had passed since the arrival of Swift River and his daughters, bringing unexpected changes to the quiet rhythm of her life. She found Swift River already awake, splitting wood with powerful, practiced swings. His buckskin shirt was damp with sweat despite the morning chill. "You're up early," she observed, setting down the basket. He embedded the axe in the chopping block. "Sunrises we rise, Cherokee way. The girls still sleeping?" "No. Lily takes them to gather eggs. Sarah cleans your chicken coop." Margaret nodded, suddenly aware of activity throughout her farm that didn't require her direction. It was disorienting. "I brought breakfast. Simple fare. Just biscuits and bacon." Swift River's face remained impassive, but his eyes showed gratitude. "More than government rations." "Thank you." As they ate, Margaret noticed Swift River studying the distant fields. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "Land needs preparing for spring planting. Winter wheat could still go in Northwest Field if we hurry. We've never grown winter wheat. Good crop, sells well. Plants now, harvests early summer. Gives time for second crop." He wiped his mouth with dignity. "If you approve." Margaret felt a strange flutter. Not since Thomas had anyone discussed farm decisions with her as an equal. "You know about winter wheat? Worked many farms moving west. Learned white man's farming." That afternoon, Margaret watched from the kitchen window as Swift River and Lily turned soil in the Northwest Field. The girl worked with her father's same quiet efficiency. No complaints despite the difficult labor. Sarah approached the house, carrying freshly gathered eggs. Unlike her older sister, Sarah seemed eager to engage. "Mrs. Whitfield, may I help with dinner?" she asked tentatively. "You've done enough work today, child. I want to learn your cooking, different from our ways." Margaret hesitated, then nodded. "Come in then." As they worked side by side, Sarah proved an apt pupil, asking thoughtful questions about measurements and techniques. Margaret found herself enjoying the company. "Your English is very good," she observed. 3 years at missionary school before ... Sarah's voice faltered. "Before what?" "Before soldiers came. So Cherokee must move again. Father fought in white man's war, thought we could stay." She looked down. "Mother got sick during winter journey. Died before reaching Kansas." Margaret's heart tightened. "I'm sorry, Sarah. Father says we adapt. Like river finding new path when rocks block old way." That evening, a problem arose when little Emma developed a cough. Margaret found Swift River holding his youngest, concern etched on his stoic face. "She needs to be inside by the fire," Margaret said firmly. "The barn's too drafty for a sick child." Swift River's brow furrowed. "We manage." It wasn't a suggestion. "Bring her to the house. Now." Reluctantly, he followed Margaret inside, the other girls trailing behind, wide-eyed at entering the main house. Margaret directed them to the sitting room, where she quickly built up the fire. "Sarah, fetch that quilt. Lily, help me prepare some honey tea for the cough." Working together, they soon had Emma wrapped warmly, sipping the soothing drink. The child's frightened eyes gradually relaxed as the warmth and medicine took effect. "Father, she tells story?" Emma asked in halting English, pointing to Margaret. Swift River looked embarrassed. "No, Emma, Mrs. Whitfield is busy." "I don't mind," Margaret said, surprising herself. She settled beside Emma and began telling a simple tale her own mother had shared years ago. As darkness fell, Margaret realized all 5 girls were now sitting at her feet, listening intently. Even Swift River had paused his restless movement to listen from the doorway. "It's too late for you all to return to the barn," she said when the story ended. "The girls can share the spare bedroom tonight. Mr. Swift River, there's the sofa. We have imposed enough. It's practical, not charity. I won't have sick children in my care." Later, after the household settled, Margaret found Swift River standing at the window, staring at the night sky. "Your daughters are lovely children," she said quietly. He turned, his expression softer than she'd yet seen. "They are my heart walking outside my body. That's beautiful. Old Cherokee saying, more true each day." He hesitated. "Tomorrow I begin building proper shelter for us. We have burdened you enough. No rush, winter's coming fast. The girls can stay in the house until spring if needed." Swift River studied her with those penetrating eyes. "Why you help us, Mrs. Whitfield?" "Most white women fear Indians." Margaret considered her answer carefully. "Perhaps because I know what it's like to lose everything and start again. After Thomas, my husband, died, people offered help, but always with judgment in their eyes. You look at me as a person, not a pitiable widow. We are not so different. Both must find new path forward." Margaret nodded, suddenly aware of how close they stood. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition perhaps, understanding. "Good night, Mr. Swift River. Good night, Mrs. Whitfield." As she climbed the stairs to her bedroom, Margaret realized her home felt different, warmer somehow, despite the November chill. For the first time in 3 years, it didn't echo with emptiness. December arrived with bitter winds and the season's first heavy snowfall. 3 weeks had passed since Emma's illness, and circumstances had evolved in ways Margaret never anticipated. The girls now lived in the house permanently, a decision made after practical discussions about heating one structure instead of 2 during winter. Swift River had insisted on moving a cot to the kitchen rather than continuing to use her sofa, maintaining propriety while keeping close to his daughters. Today, Margaret stood at the stove, teaching Lily and Sarah to make apple pie, Thomas's favorite holiday treat. The youngest girls sat at the table, practicing their letters under Margaret's guidance. "Like this, Mrs. Whitfield?" Rose asked, showing her carefully drawn alphabet. "Beautiful, Rose, your penmanship improves daily." Swift River entered, bringing a blast of cold air and an armload of firewood. Snow dusted his shoulders and dark hair, now pulled back with a leather cord. 2 months of regular meals had filled out his frame, making him even more imposing. "Storm's getting worse," he reported, setting down the wood. "Check the livestock, all secure." "Thank you." "Come warm yourself," Margaret offered, pouring coffee. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, sending an unexpected warmth through Margaret's hand. She turned quickly back to the pie. "Girls make good progress with reading," Swift River observed, sipping his coffee. "They're quick learners. Sarah especially has a gift for languages." Pride flashed in his eyes. Their mother was storyteller, words important in our family. The mention of his late wife brought a familiar shadow to his expression. Margaret had noticed it happened less frequently now, just as her own painful memories of Thomas seemed less raw lately. "Mr. Peterson from town stopped by while you were checking the north pasture," Margaret said, changing the subject. "Says there's a Christmas gathering at the church next week. Everyone's invited." Swift River's expression closed. "Church people not want Indians. He specifically mentioned your family. I think people are curious." Word spread about how much the farm has improved. Indeed, in just 2 months, Swift River had transformed the property. Fences stood straight again, the barn roof no longer leaked, and winter wheat sprouted in the northwest field against all odds. In town, Margaret had noticed changing attitudes. Fewer suspicious glances, more respectful nods. "We will think about it," he conceded. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Margaret found Swift River carving a small wooden figure by the kitchen fire. His large hands worked with surprising delicacy. "What are you making?" she asked, sitting across from him. He held up a partially formed horse. "Christmas gift for Emma. She loves animals. It's beautiful work. My father taught me. Said man must create, not just destroy." He continued carving, comfortable in their shared silence. Margaret took up her mending, aware of how natural this domestic scene felt. "Will you tell me about your wife someday?" she asked suddenly. His hands stilled momentarily. "Morning dove, good woman, strong spirit," he resumed carving. "You remind me of her sometimes. Sane determination. I would have liked to know her." Swift River nodded. "She would have respected you. Woman who stands alone, fights for what's hers." "I'm not alone anymore, am I?" Margaret said softly. Their eyes met across the fire, acknowledging the truth of her words. Something was building between them, tentative yet undeniable. The church gathering arrived with clear skies but biting cold. Margaret had spent hours helping the girls prepare, lending fabric for new dresses and showing them how to arrange their hair in the settler style. Swift River had polished his army boots and wore his best shirt, though he refused to remove the medicine pouch at his neck. "It protects my spirit," he explained when Margaret questioned it. "I respect your God and your church, but keep my ways too." The wagon ride to town was tense, the girls unusually quiet. Margaret understood their nervousness. This would be their first social event among the white community. "Remember," Swift River instructed his daughters, "stand tall. You are Cherokee. Proud people. And," Margaret added gently, "you are children of this community now too. You belong here as much as anyone." Sheriff Mills met them outside the church, his welcome seemingly genuine. "Glad you could make it, Swift River, Mrs. Whitfield." He tipped his hat. "Ladies." The girls giggled at being addressed so formally, tension breaking slightly. Inside, conversations halted as they entered. Margaret felt Swift River stiffen beside her, but he kept walking, head high. She deliberately stayed close to his family, her presence a statement of unity. Gradually, curiosity overcame prejudice. The minister's wife approached, complimenting the girls' dresses. A farmer engaged Swift River in conversation about winter wheat. Sarah was invited to join other children her age around the piano. Not everyone was welcoming. Margaret noticed Mrs. Thornton, the banker's wife, whispering behind her hand to several ladies, glancing disapprovingly in their direction. "Ignore them," Margaret whispered to Swift River. "Always some who fear difference," he replied philosophically. The evening progressed more smoothly than expected, with the girls charming several community members. Emma's innocent questions and Mary's shy smile won over even reluctant hearts. When Sarah demonstrated her reading skills, genuine admiration replaced skepticism in many eyes. As they prepared to leave, Mrs. Peterson pressed a wrapped fruitcake into Margaret's hands. "For your family," she said, including Swift River with her glance. "Christmas blessings to you all." The word family lingered in Margaret's mind during the ride home, the girls chattering excitedly about their evening. They had become a family of sorts, hadn't they? Different from what she'd imagined with Thomas, but a family nonetheless. Later, helping Swift River unharness the horses, Margaret found herself standing close to him in the barn's lantern light. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "Standing with us. Showing town we belong with you." "You do belong," she replied, her voice catching slightly. "All of you." His hand rose, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. "Margaret," he said, using her given name for the first time. The sound of it in his deep voice made her heart race. The moment stretched between them, fragile and precious. Then Emma's voice called from the house, breaking the spell. "Coming, little one," Swift River answered, dropping his hand. As they walked back to the house, their shoulders occasionally brushing, Margaret realized something profound had shifted. Whatever was growing between them could no longer be ignored or denied. They would need to address it soon, for themselves, and for the 5 young lives now intertwined with theirs. Christmas morning dawned crisp and clear. The Kansas landscape transformed into a glittering white expanse. Margaret woke early, anticipation fluttering in her chest like a young girl's. The house was still quiet as she slipped downstairs to stoke the fire and prepare a special breakfast. She found Swift River already in the kitchen, quietly arranging wooden carvings on the table, 5 exquisitely crafted animals, 1 for each daughter. "You've been working on these for weeks," Margaret said softly. He straightened, a rare smile warming his features. "Christmas important to my daughters now. Wanted to honor both traditions." Beside the carvings lay small pouches of woven material. Medicine bags, Cherokee tradition, protection. Margaret placed her own humble offerings alongside his, hand-knitted scarves and small slates for practicing writing. "It's not much, but it is from heart," Swift River finished. "Most valuable gift." They worked side by side preparing breakfast, moving in the comfortable rhythm they'd developed over the past months. When his arm brushed hers reaching for plates, neither pulled away immediately. These small moments of contact had become precious to Margaret, each one a tiny acknowledgement of the unspoken feeling growing between them. Soon the house filled with excited voices as the girls discovered their gifts. Emma clutched her wooden horse, eyes wide with wonder. "Look, Father, it runs." She demonstrated by galloping it across the floor. "Mrs. Whitfield," Lily said formally, holding her scarf, "thank you for teaching us settler ways, for making room in your home." "You're home too now, Lily," Margaret corrected gently. Sarah touched her medicine bag, then her slate. "Both worlds," she said thoughtfully, "Cherokee and new life together." After breakfast, Swift River announced he needed to check fence lines, ensuring no damage from recent storms. Margaret knew it wasn't strictly necessary today, his way of giving her time alone with the girls. They spent the morning baking cookies and singing carols Margaret taught them. The simple domestic scene filled a void in her heart she'd carried since losing Thomas. Different from what she'd imagined, but no less precious. By afternoon, concern began to grow when Swift River hadn't returned. "Storms picking up again," Margaret observed, watching snow swirl more heavily outside the windows. "Father knows winter," Lily assured her, though worry shadowed her eyes too. When dusk approached with no sign of him, Margaret made a decision. "I'm going to look for him." "Lily, you're in charge. Keep the fire going." "I come too," Sarah insisted. "No, stay with your sisters. If we're not back in 2 hours, send Mary to the nearest neighbor." Margaret donned her heaviest coat and Thomas's old scarf, tucking a lantern and matches inside. The bitter wind nearly stole her breath as she stepped outside, snow already knee-deep in places. She headed toward the north pasture where the oldest fences stood. Visibility was poor, white flakes swirling in the lantern light. "Swift River," she called, her voice snatched away by the wind. Fear began to claw at her throat as she trudged forward. If something had happened to him, the thought was unbearable. When had he become so essential to her world? A dark shape materialized ahead, the old oak at the property boundary. As she approached, relief flooded through her at the sight of Swift River kneeling in the snow, working on something. "What are you doing out here?" she demanded, anxiety making her voice sharp. He looked up, surprise evident. "Margaret? Dangerous for you in storm. And not for you?" She knelt beside him, seeing now he was freeing a young calf trapped in fallen fence posts. "Why didn't you come back for help?" Animal would freeze, could not leave it. With a final heave, he freed the frightened creature. "Go now," he told it gently. "Find your mother." The calf staggered off toward the distant barn. Swift River tried to stand but faltered, grimacing. "You're hurt," Margaret realized. "Fence fell, leg caught. Nothing broken, but—" He accepted her shoulder for support as they began the difficult journey back. The storm intensified, wind driving icy particles against their faces. Twice they stopped to regain bearings, the familiar landscape rendered alien by swirling white. "Should have built shelter," Swift River muttered. "Cherokee would build snow shelter in such storm." "We'll make it," Margaret insisted, though doubt gnawed at her. The cold was penetrating her clothes, numbing her fingers despite woolen gloves. Swift River stopped suddenly. Listen. Above the wind's howl came a faint calling voices. Squinting through the snow, Margaret glimpsed bobbing lights approaching. Father, Mrs. Whitfield. Sarah's voice carried to them. Told you to stay home, Swift River said when the search party, all 5 girls bundled against the storm, reached them. Cherokee stick together, Lily replied simply. With the girls' help, they made it back to the house, where warm blankets and hot tea awaited. As Margaret tended Swift River's injured leg, the enormity of what might have happened struck her fully. Never do that again, she said, voice trembling. Never make me fear losing you. His dark eyes held hers. Fear losing me? Yes. The admission came easier than expected. I can't lose another person I care for. The girls had tactfully moved to the other room, giving them privacy. Margaret, Swift River said, his deep voice gentle. When my wife died, thought Hart died too. Then found you. Woman who gave home to strangers. Who sees my daughters as people, not just Indians. You gave me back my farm, my purpose. More than that between us now. His hand covered hers. I am not educated man, cannot speak pretty words. But feel. He placed her palm against his chest where his heart beat strongly. Feel this. Beats for you now, for daughters. For life we build together. Tears welled in Margaret's eyes. People will talk. A white woman and a Cherokee man. People always talk. He echoed the sheriff's words from months ago. Question is whether we live with courage or fear. Margaret thought of the lonely years after Thomas, the emptiness she'd carried. Thought of the joy the past months had brought, not just Swift River, but his daughters who now felt like her own. I choose courage, she whispered, leaning forward to rest her forehead against his. His hand gently cradled her face. In Cherokee way, when 2 join, they become one fire. Stronger together than apart. One fire, she repeated, feeling the rightness of it. From the doorway came a small sound. They turned to find all 5 girls watching, expressions hopeful. Does this mean you will be our mother now? Emma asked innocently. Margaret opened her arms, and the girls rushed to embrace her. Over their heads, her eyes met Swift River's, seeing all she needed there. Family, he said simply. Outside, the Christmas storm raged on, but inside the farmhouse, something beautiful had taken root. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, by hardship overcome together, by love that transcended boundaries. Come spring, there would be challenges. The community would need time to accept their union. But the winter wheat would rise from beneath the snow. The farm would prosper under their combined care, and the daughters would flourish in a home filled with both traditions. As night fell on Christmas Day, Margaret Whitfield looked around her kitchen at the faces that had become her world. Swift River beside her, his daughters chattering around the table, and knew with certainty that loneliness would never again be her companion. From the ashes of loss, a new life had emerged, as resilient and promising as Kansas wheat pushing through frozen ground toward the sun.